Hello, I'm Congressman Pete Stauber from Minnesota's 8th Congressional District in northeastern Minnesota. Boo Boo Bear's Mission, the true story of a teddy bear's adventures in Iraq. This is dedicated to the military families who have had to say goodbye and to all families who are asked to meet the challenges of separation. Shay Lee's dad was going away and she was feeling sad. He was leaving for the war, she was scared, and she was mad. Shay Lee's dad was part of a team that makes sure that the Falcons can fly. He and the team made the jet safe for the missions in the sky. Shay Lee begged her dad to stay home. Then she wanted to sneak on his plane. She had horrible tummy ache, but no one understood her pain. Shay Lee put on a big, brave smile. Dad sadly shook his head. Then she pouted, yelled, and cried, and she stomped off to bed. Boo Boo was now scrawny and scraggly with love. He'd lost stuffing which had never been found, but he confronted Shay Lee with teddy bear hugs when her daddy wasn't around. Too soon it was time for Dad to go, with long hugs and sad goodbyes. Boo Boo Bear showed his feelings too, as Shay wiped tears from his eyes. Shay Lee played basketball and worked hard in school. Her friends helped her forget being sad. Her mom did special things with her, yet Shay Lee still missed her dad. Then one lonely day, Mom said, "Let's send some goodies to your dad. I'll put Swiss rolls, muffins, and cookies. Shay Lee, what would you like to add?"
Hello, I'm Elaine Hopkins, Director of Programs and Services for the Friends of the St. Paul Public Library, which serves as the Library of Congress designated Minnesota Center for the Book. As such, we present programming statewide that focuses on readers, writers, libraries, and our state's literary legacy. I'm really pleased to be here today with Mary Linda Sather, author of Boo Boo Bear's Mission, as a part of the Library of Congress Read Around the States program. Mary Linda Sather is an award-winning retired educator who's worked with diverse learners from preschool children with disabilities to university graduate students. As a parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent, as well as an educator, she has personally witnessed the stressful effects separation can have on families. After years of academic writing, with time only for occasional personal writing, her retirement offered the opportunity to focus on writing stories from her life and from her heart. Boo Boo Bear's Mission, the true story of a teddy bear's adventures in Iraq, was born out of a heartwarming family experience and is her first children's book. She's currently working on a memoir about her journey with her husband as she learned to come to peace with his life-threatening illnesses and eventual death. Mary Linda lives in Duluth, Minnesota, at the edge of an urban forest. When she isn't exploring the forest, she spends time hiking the rugged north shore of Lake Superior, reading, writing, photography, traveling, and enjoying time with family and friends. So welcome, Mary Linda. I'm so pleased that you're here today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So we are here to talk about Boo Boo Bear's Mission, the true story of a teddy bear's adventures in Iraq. And I would just love to hear, and so would the readers, a little bit about the inspiration for this story. How did it come about?
Well, it came about in a totally unexpected way. My son was with the Air National Guard in Minnesota, based at the 148th Fighter Wing in Duluth. And he did 3 deployments to Iraq during those war years. So his kids were not real thrilled, his 3 daughters, about his leaving, of course, and it's scary with war. His youngest daughter, Shay Lee, who was about 11 at the time, was particularly upset about his going. And what happened was, in his second deployment, she decided that she wanted to do something to try to keep the family connected. They'd been sending care packages back to him, which he greatly appreciated. But Shaylee got the idea that she would send her precious beloved teddy bear to her daddy in Iraq to
Mhm.
keep him company until they could be together again. So that's how it got started. There was no way that I couldn't write that story.
Of course. That's fantastic. Did Shaylee's father take any pictures or send any images of his life with Boo Boo Bear on the book?
Actually, he did. We had to be careful that none were um, forbidden because of security reasons. And he told me very specifically what I could and couldn't show. Um, and so that worked out fine, but it was really great to hear all of the things that happened there. The service members had contests to hide the bear and to see who could find it. And in the story, the bear gets to go on an actual mission, which probably wasn't exactly okay, but they did it. They did it anyway. And so the bear got to fly, which is, totally amazing. So the people who were deployed had an opportunity to have a little bit of lightness in their lives, and really enjoyed it.
And I bet that Shaylee then benefited from that too, the sort of maybe feeling that she was responsible for some of that lightness
Yeah,
and
yeah,
joy that she was able to connect with her.
absolutely. Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, she was.
It's marvelous. And in the book, the illustrations they're wonderful, and they were all done by children. I'll show a few of them, and I would love it um, if you could talk a bit about, here's one of them at the base, and then if you could talk a little bit about how that process worked. Here's another one that's a picture of Shaylee, I think. So how did that start?
Um, I considered how we would illustrate it, because with children's books, typically there are illustrations. And I thought about looking for an illustrator. And then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that what I want is for this to be a children's project, a children's book that they can participate in and feel some ownership in. So I was fortunate enough to have some connections with the family program people at the base, and they helped me set up some meetings. So we had illustrators days. We brought in groups of kids, and they had a bunch of other activities that, play related, and food, of course, for children. And then the whole idea of introducing them to the book and having them choose a text that they would like to illustrate. And we did that twice in different locations. So we ended up with many, many children, both military and civilian, who contributed possible illustrations for the book. And in the end, that turned out to be really exciting, because when we did the book launch, of course, those children were there and got to actually see their pictures and be so excited. And the parents were so excited. So for me, it was a really joyful thing in the middle of some quite serious world events.
Oh, absolutely. That's such a fantastic way to connect with the children. And then they get to be in a book. I have to show the picture of Boo Boo Bear actually in the jet.
And of course, these were the children's interpretations of what went on.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so that makes them even more interesting.
Absolutely. Can you talk a little bit more? You mentioned the launch. Can you talk a little bit more about other events that you had surrounding Boo Boo Bear's mission and what that meant to you as the author and certainly as I mean, it's your own family story, but how that helped you connect with others who were going through the same thing?
And I think connection is the key word there. As I mentioned, I wanted this to be something for the children and their families. So I spent a lot of time setting up events. I had some help with that, thank goodness. And I went to schools, to libraries, um, did public events with adult groups, with community groups, presented to children's young authors writing conferences. So we got into the focus of the actual writing of the book, which was interesting, particularly for the older children.
Mhm.
So, and I had the opportunity to be invited to go to some bases where they had day-long programs. I got to present, and it was just lovely to meet those families, to set up activities where the families could talk about um, the feelings that went with deployments and the separation issues and how we can deal with those. And I learned so much in the process too about how families handled those things and when they were struggling and the things that they found that helped to support them. So
Mhm.
this to me was the real joy of the whole experience, was meeting the children, the families, having the opportunity to interact with them, to learn from them, to hear their stories, to try to answer their questions. It was just a phenomenal experience for me.
It sounds wonderful. I mean, and really what an amazing experience as the writer to be able to see the direct impact that your
Yes,
work
yeah,
has
yeah.
on its audience. That's really fantastic. So Boo Boo Bear's Mission was your first book. Would you talk to us a little bit about what's next? What are you currently working on, or what do you have in mind for future writing?
Well, interestingly enough, I was working on another children's book when this family event occurred, and I set that book aside. That was a book about a little girl who was learning how to interact with her grandmother who had Alzheimer's. So in a sense, that was a teaching book in a way as well, helping kids to be able to connect with their own experiences and maybe learn some strategies or some ways to think about a grandparent that they're losing, in a sad way,
Mhm.
um, and figure out how to turn that into something that's more positive. So the working title of that book is What Gammy Remembers, rather than What She Forgets.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Wonderful.
then beyond that, I'm also working on a memoir that tells the story of my journey with my husband and how I learned to come to peace with his life-threatening illnesses and his ultimate death. Um, so that's a bigger project. I'm working now on the book proposal for that, and challenging times, challenging topics, challenges as a writer.
Yes, absolutely. But really, it's great to have the experiences that you have with your writing, with your career as an educator in that way, about being able to use writing to process those and then being
Yeah.
able to share those experiences with other people who have maybe walked down that same path as well or been on some part of that journey. So thank you for the work that you do. Um, and thank you again for Boo Boo Bear's Mission and for speaking with us today for the Read Around the States program. It was really a pleasure to connect with you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.